send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Tie? Check. Lucky pen? Check. Yorkshire tea? Check. A busy show, as always, on Mark Dolan tonight. My Mark Meets guest is the author of a stunning new book about Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich. What a story. What is the future for this billionaire oligarch following Russia's invasion of Ukraine? In the big question, should we build more roads and scrap projects like HS2? And what about all those potholes? Have you been affected by potholes in your neighbourhood? In my big opinion, political correctness is killing British comedy. Soon we won't be able to laugh about anything. Plus tomorrow's papers, another great British game show, and my all-star panel. We've got a big 2 hours coming up. You won't want to miss a second, but first up, the headlines with Olivia.
Thank you, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The war in Ukraine has dominated the Conservative Party Spring Conference, with the Prime Minister saying Russia's president launched the invasion because he fears a democratic nation as his neighbour. Boris Johnson told the Tory summit Vladimir Putin is threatened by Ukraine's free press and elections.
He feared the Ukrainian example, and he feared the implicit reproach to himself. Because in Putin's Russia, you get jailed for 15 years just for calling an invasion an invasion. And if you stand against Putin in an election, you get poisoned or shot.
112 children have been killed since the start of the Russian invasion, according to the Ukrainian prosecutor's office. In the east, the governor of Luhansk says a humanitarian corridor is being opened for residents trying to evacuate the region. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for face-to-face talks with his Russian counterpart, telling Vladimir Putin it's time for comprehensive and meaningful negotiations.
I want everyone to hear me now, especially in Moscow. The time has come for a meeting. It is time to talk. The time has come to restore territorial integrity and justice for Ukraine. Otherwise, Russia's losses will be such that it will take several generations to recover.
In other news, P&O Ferries has resumed services between Liverpool and Dublin after sacking 800 staff on Thursday. It comes as maritime union Nautilus International urged the government to revoke the ferry operators' licences in British waters. In a letter to the Transport Secretary, the union also called for any taxpayer money received during the pandemic to be returned. A murder investigation's been launched after a teenager was killed in central London. The 19-year-old was found at student accommodation in Clerkenwell. Officers responded to reports of a woman suffering injuries. She died at the scene. Firefighters suspect a huge blaze in the village of Parkgate in Cheshire may have been started deliberately. Crews responded to the incident just after 6:20 this evening, and 6 fire engines are currently at the scene. Witnesses have posted footage online of the flames, which has spread across 500 square metres of marshland. Cheshire Fire and Rescue say fire breaks have been put in place to protect nearby properties. An investigation is now underway. on TV, online and on radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Olivia. Olivia returns in an hour's time. It is Saturday, the 19th of March, and you're watching and listening to Mark Dolan tonight. So much to get through on the programme. A cracking Saturday night of entertainment for you. In the big question, following news that Rod Stewart has had to repair his own road. Should we fix potholes and build more roads rather than wasting money on projects like HS2? We'll hear from all sides on that one. My Mark Meets guest is the author of a stunning new book about Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich. What is the future for this billionaire oligarch? How did he make his money, and what happens now following Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Plus, we've got another great British game show, my alternative news headlines, including before and after photos of model Bella Hadid's nose job. You'll be shocked by those before photos, exclusively obtained by this show. Plus, we've got tomorrow's papers and reacting to the big stories of the day. My amazing panel, Lembit Opik, former Lib Dem MP, now entrepreneur and filmmaker. Jay Aston, broadcaster and former member of, wait for it, Bucks Fizz. And the brilliant comedian, former Scottish Comedian of the Year, the amazing Leo Kearse. So lots to get through. I can guarantee you two things tonight: stimulation and entertainment in equal measure. Remember, we don't do boring, not on my watch. It is Saturday night, so whilst we tackle some serious issues, let's have some fun along the way. But before we do that, I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. You know that my best bit of the show is when you get in touch. So, lots to get through. It is Saturday, so grab something cold and Californian from the fridge, or fire up the kettle and tear open a packet of milk chocolate hobnobs, and let's get to work. The BBC, remember them, have reinstated the comedy series Little Britain by putting it back on their catch-up service, iPlayer. How nice of them. How nice of them to grant us access to a hit comedy series that, of course, we paid for. Except that it has now been edited down for our own safety. Because we're so stupid, we're so intolerant, and we're so easily led that we can't be trusted with any dangerous material that just a few years ago was watched and enjoyed by millions. Little Britain was the biggest comedy hit for a generation, loved by all communities across the land. Little Britain was exactly what it said on the tin, a portrait of Britain through the anarchic comedic lens of David Walliams and Matt Lucas. Now, I can't say that every sketch was to my taste, but the programme was suffused with perceptive social commentary, and notwithstanding some of the bawdier, wackier and more lowbrow gags, Little Britain was underpinned by astute satire, pitch-perfect performances and keen, penetrating observations. It touched a nerve, it hit home, and it made people laugh. It became a successful show, not just on the BBC, but repeated elsewhere on other channels, because it contained within it some human truth, which is key to any good comedy. Comedy is the truth dressed up in a clown's outfit. Although I wasn't an avid viewer of this show, what I liked about Little Britain was its universality. It went after everyone in our society. The work-shy and unintelligible single mother Vicky Pollard, remember her? The only gay in the village, Daffyd Thomas. I'm the only gay in the village, you know. The cross-dressing Emily and Florence, responsible for the "I'm a lady" catchphrase. And wheelchair-bound Lou, who kept hopping out of his chair. And of course, that sketch featured his long-suffering carer, Andy. Confusingly, all of those characters could be accused of many forms of prejudice. Classism, snobbery, transphobia, homophobia, or in the case of Lou and Andy, an attack on the disabled. But the Beeb instead decided to remove Desiree de Vere, for which David Walliams donned a black makeup appearance and a fat suit. A lady just as British as Vicky Pollard, Daffyd and Andy, but she gets the chop. Does she not have a place In Little Britain, you tell me. But you can't have it both ways. The show was either offensive or it wasn't. You can't cherry pick which offensive bits to take out and which to leave in. The answer is to leave well alone. As a portrait of modern Britain, this is a show that poked fun at all communities, all social classes, all backgrounds. It was actually diverse comedy at its very best. How can you have a comedy series about modern Britain that doesn't feature people from all backgrounds, races, creeds, colour or sexual orientation? By mocking everyone, it was about the most inclusive show you can think of. Little Britain would surely have a far more serious case to answer if it had omitted any races or groups from that show. To spare any group their satirical wrath would be an act of prejudice in itself. David Walliams and Matt Lucas are a comedic double act touched with genius. Not just the writing, but their fabulous performances, becoming whoever they dress up as, just like Peter Sellers used to do, and many others too. Icons of comedy. What about the amazing Eddie Murphy, Sacha Baron Cohen? All of these people become somebody else in order to process the world that we live in and to hold a mirror up to our own lives and our own society. But the meddling BBC have now been through this archive of comedy and removed troublesome parts, so-called problematic comedy, except that all comedy worth its salt is problematic. It's got to be. We've seen this in the past with trigger warnings about faulty towers and even certain episodes being pulled because of racial language, except in the case of Faulty Towers, it was the writer John Cleese who was mocking and satirising the old colonel for being racist, for being out of touch, for being ignorant. But even an anti-racist message falls foul of the tone-deaf, illiterate censors. Whether it's decolonising Shakespeare, banning the Rolling Stones from performing Brown Sugar, a song critical of slavery, which they will now never perform again, no one has the right to touch works of art. They exist as monuments to our story. Even if we now reject or hate what they represent. Some of Bernard Manning's routines, for example, repulse me. But they should sit there on YouTube as a chapter in our history to be understood. Western values of liberalism have eroded in recent years. We've seen the encroachment of totalitarian policies and values that a once freedom-loving country used to have but has discarded. Lockdowns to control the virus, not a Western idea. Cracking down on free speech, straight out of the Chinese Communist Party playbook. And look at the behaviour of the US tech giants and the worrying online harms bill here in the UK, which could make thinking the wrong things a hate crime. The hypocrisy, of course, is spectacular. Vladimir Putin and the Taliban are on Twitter, but Donald Trump is not. Go figure. If the BBC is willing to adulterate some of its greatest work because of modern sensibilities, what's next? The day irony died was a month ago when the University of Northampton placed a trigger warning on George Orwell's 1984, saying it contains explicit material which some may find offensive and upsetting. The book is a dystopian social science fiction novel which gave birth to popular phrases such as Big Brother and Thought Police. And now it's got a warning about safety. Art reflecting life, you couldn't make it up. Let me be clear. Something is happening, folks. The state and its institutions, fueled and supercharged by the pandemic, are performing a land grab of our economy, our language, our history, our thought processes, our education and our lives. Aided and abetted by the aforementioned tech companies like Facebook, Twitter and Google. Now, of course, times change, and comedy changes with the times. I'm not sure you would make Little Britain now. Fair enough. But the point about Little Britain is that nobody came out of it well. The truth is that comedy wounds, comedy attacks, comedy hurts, and it's got to be naughty. It has to be problematic. Extreme political correctness will always be the death of comedy, because humour always requires a target and a victim. And it contains searing truths that will always make people uncomfortable. That's its job. The increasingly censorious atmosphere of this modern world, where people are afraid not just to make a joke on TV, but even in real life, in the office or at a dinner party or on the bus, this does us no favours at all. A college lecturer almost lost his job when joking in a shopping centre lift that he'd like to get out at the lingerie department. He almost lost his job for making a joke. Well, in my view, all of this is knickers. Comedy is a bellwether, a litmus test for a free society, for freedom of speech, and more importantly, for freedom of thought. Whilst I didn't like his joke, I defend Jimmy Carr's right to do his horrible, deeply offensive gag about the Second World War. Or the comic who dropped me a C-bomb last week. Good luck to them. If the politically correct zealots have their way, they will kill comedy altogether. Let's be honest, given so much of the drab right-on stuff that we're currently seeing on TV, it's already heading that way. Comedy, folks, is another hill to die on, and the definition of a self-aware society which can laugh at itself. Comedy, unfiltered, uncensored, and unedited, gives us the chance to reflect, learn, and of course laugh. The alternative is a joyless dystopia where we can't laugh at anything. Go woke? No joke. Reacting to the big stories of the day are my all-star panel, former Lib Dem and now filmmaker and broadcaster Lembit Opik, commentator and presenter and former star of Bucks Fizz, Jay Aston, and comedian and broadcaster and presenter here at GB News, Leo Kearse. Leo, if I could start with you, you are an official comedian, award-winning no less. What's your verdict on the BBC's decision to edit down Little Britain?
It's ridiculous. We see this happening a lot. We see content warnings. We see edits being made on material that, just a few years ago. We're not going back to the 1970s for this offensive material. It's very recent history. And to think that people assume that the world has changed so much that these opinions that used to be, or these jokes that used to be perfectly acceptable in mainstream, primetime television, are now something that has to be edited out, lest people see it and then are outraged or appalled, or even worse, are inspired to commit some terrible, horrific, violent crime. It's nonsense. We're being treated like children now. It's we don't need to be mollycoddled. I mean, I see it in comedy clubs as well. People complain, there's the Live Comedy Association, which regulates and censors comedy, and we don't need to be censored. We're performing in front of a jury. The audience are our jury. If we say anything that's genuinely, misogynist or homophobic or transphobic or horrible in some way, people won't laugh because they're not horrible people. People are generally pretty nice.
Yes, I think that Lembit Opik, it would have been a bigger story if Little Britain hadn't featured characters from a black or minority ethnic background. The show was called Little Britain, and I thought it was a kind of seaside caricatured postcard of modern, diverse Britain.
I couldn't agree with you more, and for once, I agree with Leo.
Don't make a habit of it.
Well, I know I'm not going to make a habit of it. Well, I will tell you, though.
We deliberately kept you apart tonight. Jay's the buffer.
Honestly, yeah.
And listen, if there's any trouble, Jay's going to rip off her skirt unexpectedly, so be warned.
Now.
She's got to make her mind up at some point.
I think you're living in the land of make-believe.
Oh, very good. The way I look at it is that comedy should go anywhere. If people don't watch Leo do his stand-up set or your magnificent comedy career, they don't have to buy a ticket. I'm making a film in Corfu called Mr. Calamari. It's about a Brexiteer who doesn't like Brexit. He moves to Corfu. Should that be banned because it's ironic? The difficulty we've now got is we patronise the public so much that we think that we shouldn't let them see something which is challenging. Well, fine. OK, then let's assume that George Orwell was right. We cannot give anybody anything which might not fit with the script. My view is the exact opposite, and by inference from your monologue and also what Leo said, we have actually got to give people the right in a democracy to make up their own mind. Otherwise, let's suspend democracy. Simple as that.
Well, the issue you've got, and you're a big liberal, aren't you, Lembit, is that if you have censors, then it's someone's judgment about what problematic comedy is. And that's the issue.
That's the point. Basically, I'm a libertarian. A libertarian is perhaps slightly different to the Lib Dems at the moment, because I think that there's a slight mission drift in that party. But a libertarian says it's okay to offend people as long as you don't actually harm them too much. Someone will make the judgment. And do you know who that's going to be at the moment? It's not going to be Leo or me. It's going to be the state. Because when we ridicule the state and it's inconvenient to the state, then they take our power away from us. They censor us. One of the most insane things that Nick Clegg, the former leader of the Lib Dems, ever said was that he wanted to ban non-violent extremists from platforms in university. Think about that. That means that you can be extremist without promoting violence, and you shouldn't be allowed to speak. This is an extension of that. Mark, what's the point of having fought all of these wars, all the people who've died in all of these wars, if now we choose to assume that the public cannot understand any of this?
Yeah, Jay Aston, what's your view on this?
I think it's kind of sad that we're so worried about offending people, because obviously there are things that sort of old series that we used to watch in the 70s and 80s which you would wince at now. But, things like Monty Python's Flying Circus, John Cleese, Fawlty Towers, these are fabulous works of art, and I just think it'd be tragic that we erase that British comedy sense of humour, which was a huge part of our strength, I think, in our country. And my dad actually was a comic, so I was brought up around comedy. When he was posted to India during the war, and on his way back on the boat, he met Kenneth Williams, and they sort of made a pact that they'd stop fighting and they'd start making people laugh. So they actually ended up in pantomime together as ugly sisters. So, but
that's amazing.
Comedy is. I was brought up with.
That's a good name drop.
It really
comedy
is.
Is a huge part of my.
What was your dad's name, Jay?
Ted Durant.
Oh yeah, I know the name. Yeah,
he had his own show called Comedy Bandbox, and the first comic he introduced was Jimmy Tarbuck. And so on that show there was a massive eclectic mix of comedy styles, which I think is so important because it kind of came from different areas of the country, and some of it was pretty offensive, but generally it went very, very well. And before my mum married my dad, she dated Peter Sellers and was actually engaged to him. And she was with him for 4 years, and I have over 100 love letters written to my mum by Peter Sellers. So, yes, important stuff, no fighting in the war room, gentlemen.
Well, I'm kind of glad that your mum chose your dad and not Peter Sellers, because now we've got you, we've got Bucks Fizz, and we've got that, wonderful story to tell. But did your mum tell you about Peter Sellers, what he was like?
Well, the Peter she knew was a very different Peter to the one that we all learned of, later on. And if I'm completely honest, I think the breakup with my mum really, really affected him. They met at age 21, just after the war. And so they bonded and they were friends literally until the last few days that he passed away. So he was a very different man personally than he was on stage, and he sort of thrived becoming a character.
I'll see your mum and I'll raise you Brit Eklund, because I was actually in the jungle with her, and she wasn't too complimentary about Peter Sellers, but I know they were an item for a while.
Yeah, they were married, yes. No, I know there's a lot of nasty things said about Peter, but the Peter that my mum knew was only a perfect gentleman. He was. But
it's interesting that you raise, Jay, Peter Sellers, because this is a man who played an incompetent French detective, Inspector Clouseau, who I'm sure is just days away from being cancelled.
Yeah.
He also played an Indian film star in a movie called The Party. He played a character called Rundi V. Bashki, whose catchphrase was Birdie Num Num. An incredibly funny film, but I would have thought that's been cancelled already.
I'm sure it has. Terribly sad. I know comedy has obviously changed over the years, and it does reflect society, which it should have, obviously. But I just think some of those things are treasures, and I think as long as we can actually see them somewhere, if you want to watch them, then go and watch it on YouTube or Netflix or wherever it is. But hopefully they won't all be cancelled, and it's just important stuff, I think.
Yeah, very briefly.
Not now, Cato.
Well, not now, Cato. I like to have a rim. A what? A rim. That is what I said, a rim, you know. Can I ask you, Leo, very briefly, only got a couple of seconds, but my view is that, whether art is problematic or not, it mustn't be touched because it's history.
Absolutely. And also, it has a knock-on effect on the self-censorship of artists. Most censorship is self-censorship. The artists apply to themselves because they're worried about the reaction or the possible consequences. So we're seeing this in the blandifying effect of mainstream comedy in the UK. But you can avoid that by seeing my show Cancel Culture, which is being filmed at Top Secret tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Do it. A worthy plug. In fact, I've got a project for you, Leo, which is to write a really offensive sitcom that just annoys all the right people. I'm sure it will be a smash hit. Look, we've got a really busy show tonight. Very excited about my Mark Meets guest. He is the biographer of Roman Abramovich. How did this man make his billions? And what is his future since Russia's invasion of Ukraine? 10 o'clock, you won't want to miss that. The inside story of Roman Abramovich. In the news agenda later this hour with my amazing panel, is another election in the offing? Could it happen next year? Is Boris ready to go back to the country following his bounce in relation to the Ukraine story? But next in the big question, should we build new roads and motorways and repair the ones we've got rather than expensive rail projects? What do you think? We're going to talk potholes and the state of Britain's roads. Have they been neglected for too long? We'll hear from all sides. I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at GBNews.uk. Let's talk comedy. Let's talk roads. Let's talk Roman Abramovich. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
What's the best part of my show? Hearing from you via email, mark@gbnews.uk. So many emails coming in on the topic of my big opinion monologue. Political correctness is killing British comedy, and soon we won't be able to joke about anything. Well, many of you in agreement on this. Gordon says, good evening, Mark. Don't you think these woke numpties should grow up and enjoy life as opposed to looking for things to complain about? Have a great show. Gordon, I will have a great show because you've got us off to a great start with that email. Anne says, hi, Mark. I think the attack on comedy began several years ago. It's not as recent as you all think. I'm talking about when one of the best and funniest children's cartoon series was banned by the BBC for exhibiting violent content and racial stereotypes which they considered offensive. I'm talking about Tom and Jerry. The world's gone mad. Thank you for that one, Anne. Dear Mark, if comedy offends, don't watch it, says Stephen. Jackie says, hi, Mark. Although I've never found Little Britain funny or offensive, it's just not my thing. But if the BBC are going to put it back on our screens, it should include all sketches. Cherry-picking the ones that are the least offensive, according to some editor at the Beeb, misses the whole point of the show. Leave it alone or leave it on the shelf. Let the audience decide. Jacqueline, I agree with every syllable. By the way, this from Robert. Hi, Mark. If a comedian can't be funny without being rude and offensive, maybe he or she is in the wrong profession. For quite a few years, comedy has been sinking lower and lower. Some of our greatest comedians never felt the need to be rude and insulting. Comedy needs to clean up its act, period. Ronald, hi, Mark. Personally, I think anyone who feels offended by comedy really needs to get a life. Thank you for that, Ron. And finally, Richie, dear Mark, a few years back, I worked in an environment that laughed all the time. Politically incorrect? Of course, says Richie. Now the workplace is sterile. You could make a joke, but if someone or someone who knows someone is offended, you're sacked. There is no jollity in the workplace anymore. No one laughs. As an aside, that fire in Parkgate, not Parkgate in your news, is just 6 miles from my house. Well, Richie, thank you so much for that. And I'm sorry to hear about that fire, which I know the emergency services are dealing with as we speak. You're on fire with your emails tonight. Keep them coming. mark@gbnews.uk. It was revealed this week that rock superstar Rod Stewart has had to repair the road outside his Essex mansion. He's done it himself, has our Rod. Now, potholes are a blight on this country, damaging cars and causing disruption. But the problem doesn't seem to be getting any better. Have Britain's roads, an important part of our infrastructure and economy, been overly neglected in recent years? Should we scrap expensive rail projects like HS2 or cycle lanes in order to repair the roads that we've got and perhaps build more? What do you think? Should we have more B roads, A roads and motorways? With me now to discuss this, we've got a full house. Senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate change, John Grant, Green Party councillor and environmental campaigner Steve Masters, and former female race car driver and motoring expert Amanda Stretton. Amanda, what do you think about the state of potholes in this country? Even Rod Stewart's got to fix his own, otherwise he's going to wreck his Ferrari.
Yeah, potholes are a real problem throughout the country, and it's partly to do with the fact that there has been a massive lack of spending on the roads. Councils have had to just patch them up rather than actually address the serious underlying problem that's causing the pothole in the first place. But if, as a road user, you do incur damage as a result of a pothole, you can go to the council and actually claim for compensation and repair, but it's quite a lengthy process and it can take an awful lot of time and bother, and many people have got no idea how to go about doing it. So yeah, potholes are a real problem and I can't see any way out of them soon.
What do they do to cars, Amanda?
So the first thing they do is they can damage your tyres. So your tyre you can have a puncture, or you can just damage the sidewall of your tyre. In serious cases, they can actually do some suspension damage as well. So you can end up having some seriously costly repairs to your car. And in the case of a Ferrari, obviously, because the car is going to be going down into a pothole, you can actually end up with damage under the car as well. And that's not to mention the damage that can happen to bicycles, motorcycles and other two-wheeled devices that use the road, because of course if they hit a pothole, that can actually be really serious, with somebody coming off their bike and heaven forbid having a really serious accident.
And Amanda, is the issue the repatching of potholes? Do roads need to be completely resurfaced?
Well, in part they do, yes, but the big problem is, of course, the British weather. We love to complain about the weather. So what we have is we have spells of huge amount of water, then we get freezing, then it gets very warm. And so this just causes the road surface to degenerate. And when it gets icy, the water obviously, when it freezes, it expands, and that then breaks the road surface up as well. So there are two problems. We really need to resurface our roads properly and do the job properly, but we also need to fix the weather.
Well, yes, of course, that's always a factor. I'm delighted to welcome Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change, John Grant. Great to have you with us, John. Do you think we have underestimated the importance of roads in this country?
There is since the 1990s, we've established that the more roads you build, the more cars you have. So there is a dilemma here in that the levels of congestion are causing real harm to our people in the UK to the point of the pollution killing people. I mean, a good number here in Sheffield, the estimate's 500 a year. So building more roads will, without an investment in public transport, without an attempt to get cars off the road, will just inevitably, because people are smart, you've got better roads, you're going to get in your car and you're going to travel from A to B, and you're going to live places where you think you can travel to work rapidly because you've got a new road, and that connection has to be broken if we're to come out of both the local air quality issue and then the wider issue of carbon emissions, because transport is about 35% of that issue as well.
But John, is air pollution a short-term factor given the adoption of electric vehicles, hybrids and cleaner petrol and diesel engines?
Well, if the congestion goes up, it's always going to be a problem. Even electrics have problems with emissions from their tyres and brakes. And really, we need to be trying to move, in the cities at least, to a more car-free approach, which is a much healthier, a much more open, a much more diverse sort of experience in those cities, which will give people who need to travel in a car better opportunity, rather than a congested, choked up city where nobody can use that. So, there's obviously going to be people and companies that need to use the roads. And at the moment, they're unable to function effectively because it's just choked up with cars generally. But people have to get in their cars if they've got awful public transport. The evidence is that £1 spent on a bus or a bus route will give £3 worth of improvement to that local economy. This is cold economics here. Yes, have roads that don't have potholes. Of course, we don't want roads with potholes, but we have to disconnect those roads from general car use, or we're done.
Delighted to welcome Steve Masters to the programme, Green Party councillor and environmental campaigner. Hello, Steve. Look, Rod Stewart, the rock superstar, has had to repair his own road. Shouldn't we fix the roads we've got before building more rail?
We should be investing in an integrated transport network on a local level, and as John has said, in encouraging people to get out of cars as much as possible. And one way of ensuring that the roads are suitable for those road users that are left and need to use it is by repairing the existing road network to a standard that benefits all road users. As Amanda said, roads aren't used by cars, motorcyclists, cyclists, and and the hazards that face car drivers are exacerbated and somewhat more dangerous for vulnerable road users like cyclists. So, we need to work towards a integrated local transport system. And I think we should be looking and reassessing the national road building scheme, and we can make lots of cost savings that can be invested in those local transport systems and repairing the existing road network that we have. And as a local councillor, potholes are one of the main complaints that I get from my local residents when they're interacting with the council. They'll see a pothole. And they may not realise that it has to get to a certain standard and depth and area before it can even be assessed by a contractor to repair. And very often those repairs are almost temporary. And as Amanda pointed out, with the climatic conditions that we have in this country, the weather gets underneath the temporary or the repairs, and you're back to square one in a number of years. So I think you've got a panel here who are fairly well agreeing that the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment, and especially with rising fuel prices, people are going to be looking for alternatives away from cars. And already there's anecdotal evidence, certainly locally around the south of England, that people are already carpooling to reduce the number of car journeys that they're making on their own because of the impact of the fuel crisis. So, that kind of adaptation will happen inevitably.
Yeah. Steve, your image is freezing slightly on the screen. You've either had Botox or it's your broadband. We'll come back to you in just a moment. I'd like to come back, if I can, to Amanda Stretton. Amanda, what about the economy? Because I've always understood that more roads and more people in cars is a sign of a growing, thriving economy.
Well, of course it is. And as an island nation, all of our goods and services are actually delivered to us via the road in the most part as well. But we are an island nation, so where are we actually going to build all of these roads? We have limited space. We certainly have limited space in our towns and cities. And as everybody has correctly identified, we actually need a much better integrated transport system. There is a time and a place for everybody to use a car as and when necessary. But when you're going into a town or a city, there should be alternatives that people can use that are much easier and much better integrated. I moved out into the country, and no sooner had I bought a house than they cancelled all my local buses. Now, that isn't a sensible policy when you're trying to encourage people into a cleaner, greener society and to try and help people to get out of their cars. I have no other options here.
What about personal choice, though, Amanda, as well? Many people enjoy the convenience and luxury of being in their own car. And actually, if we completely destroy our car infrastructure, we're going to affect the car industry, which is a big employer and a big contributor to our economy.
Now, I would put my hands up here. I am not in favour of banning the infrastructure totally. I enjoy my car. And in actual fact, during COVID, we saw a resurgence of people actually using their cars because, of course, they were choosing not to use public transport because they felt safer in their cars as well. And that's why we, at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, we saw a steep rise in people buying second, maybe third, or what we like to call station cars for doing those short commutes because they wanted to stay out of public transport. So, I agree, public choice does play a huge part.
Yeah, how do you see this going? What do you think the government's focus is going to be in terms of our roads going forward, Amanda? Do you think we're going to get more roads, more motorways and more investment in potholes?
Well, we've seen a bit of a U-turn with the government's motorway policy with regards to smart motorways, which I think has been broadly welcomed because I'm not sure anybody was truly in favour of those. But I think what we're actually really suffering with at the moment is just a chronic lack of spending on our transport system, whether it be roads, whether it be our train, buses, public transport, whatever it may be. We've got an awful lot of people who need to move around, which is why we see such major congestion on our roads and in our cities. And clearly, there just simply isn't the infrastructure there at the moment for people to efficiently move around.
I hear what you're saying, Amanda, but I think we need more roads because people, especially in rural communities, don't have a choice, or maybe they don't want to wait an hour for the next bus. And this is about personal choice, surely.
I'm not sure, though, that more roads is necessarily going to fix that problem. I mean, I live in a rural community and I'm not sure that more roads is going to make any difference. I actually have got less of a problem with traffic and more of a problem with lack of infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, what really bothers me, going back to you, Steve Masters, are temporary roadworks. Those are the bane of my life. Do you think the government should crack down on those?
I do believe that there needs to be some more coordination in the maintenance of roads. It's highlighted that there's very often a road dug up one week, repaired, and then somebody else will come along. And there are moves towards that. I know. But going back to the local transport, Amanda is correct. More roads. You don't need more roads in areas of outstanding natural beauty, such as West Berkshire. What you need is a more affordable, a sustainable public transport network. And that's what people want. And you say it's about personal choice. If people are offered alternatives, they will make the choices that work for them, both in convenience and economically. And, and as I've mentioned, economically, we're all going to be stretched over the next few months and years with the current situation. in the economy. So, those supports, and it's ironic. I'm up in Salford at the moment in a tower block, and I've got worse internet than I had when I was up in a tree for 3 months in Buckinghamshire, fighting against a gross overspending on HS2, that's going to have an impact on the biodiversity and the countryside. So I do apologise about the internet, but we
Steve,
should be getting
very
towards
briefly,
the conversation.
Yeah, Steve, very briefly, do you think we should scrap HS2?
Absolutely, 100%. It's we need to invest in the existing network that we have on the rail system and making sure that we've got interconnectivity on local levels and improving the rolling stock. It's a massive project, and and we've seen over the last 2 years, working and commuting habits have changed dramatically, and nobody wants to spend long time travelling between massive cities. Birmingham, Manchester. In the city, and if you need to get there 20 minutes earlier, set off.
Yeah, John Grant, briefly, should we scrap HS2?
For the most part, yes, because what I want is a good east-west connectivity between Liverpool and Hull, which includes Manchester, Sheffield and Leeds. And what HS2 was going to do was allow all this wonderful skills and people to flow south far too effectively, rather than trying to nurture the very great potential that we've got up here. But also I'd like to point out that back in the day, Postal Service used to offer bus service when we used to have 2 deliveries a day. There was a postal bus morning. It's a long time ago now. But the idea that we expect deliveries now to our homes via Amazon and such like, and other providers exist, that maybe the thought here in the rural areas is to try and combine services, rather than having a dedicated bus service, maybe some kind of taxi stroke delivery service, postal service stroke sort of bus service could be organised, because the people in the rural areas are really, really good at mixing their services, combining pubs with post offices and the like.
It sounds like communism to me, I've got to say. The removal of personal choice, which has been a flavour of the last 2 years of public policy. But look, it's all about opinions. My thanks to John Grant, Steve Masters and Amanda Stretton. Lots more to come. In our news agenda, is an election in the offing? Could the Prime Minister go to the polls as early as next year? We'll discuss that with my panel. And don't forget, my Mark Meets guest at 10 is Dominic Midgley. He is the biographer of Roman Abramovich. How did this oligarch make his billions, and what is his future following Russia's invasion of Ukraine? All of that to come, plus my alternative news headlines and another great British game show. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Opinions running high in relation to roads and potholes and our transport infrastructure. Ian says, hi, Mark. Let's have a look at this one. He says, no to more buses. Hi, Mark. More public transport may work in the big cities, but for the bulk of the country, the only people who take the bus are old folks and kids. How about this from Adrian? Dear Mark, scrap HS2, a waste of money. Fix the roads we have before we build more. Make the M25 one way. Regarding buses, every pound spent on buses will go to bus operators. I speak as someone who does not drive. It will not help. Don't bother claiming from the council for damage to your car. And your panellist who wants an east-west line from HS2, where I live, we need 10 miles of track relaying to give us an east-west connection rather than a 2-hour round trip. We don't all live on an already existing track that we want upgrading. Adrian, thank you for that comprehensive message. Look, so many emails coming in. Vanessa says, good evening, Mark. Great programme. I'm enjoying it. Thank you, Vanessa. Yes, potholes are a problem on our roads, but what about the litter and the dead animals? I'd love to see GB News question the disgusting problem of litter in this country and the absence of fencing to prevent wildlife being killed on our roads. Well said, Vanessa. I will actually follow up your point there about the risk to wildlife of our roads and rail, and also the point about littering, which I know angers many people, myself included. Well, let's take a look now at some of the big stories breaking. With me, reacting to the big stories of the day, is former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik, former member of Bucks Fizz and now broadcaster and presenter Jay Aston, and comedian Leo Kearse. So, who could replace Boris? Well, Number 10 staff have been warned an election could be underway as early as next year. David Canzini, the PM's deputy chief of staff, told aides last week that the clock is ticking for Boris Johnson. This is despite ministers suggesting Boris will hold on until May 2024. You've got Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak as the forerunners in the race, with Michael Gove and even Jacob Rees-Mogg in the wings. So could it be Prime Minister Starmer? So who do we think, panel? Do you think that a snap election is in the offing? What do you think, Lembit?
Well, I've got insider knowledge. Many of the Tories think that they will have an election in 2023. That may seem counterintuitive, but let's remember that in 1981-82, Margaret Thatcher, the Conservative Prime Minister at the time, was one of the most unpopular leaders in history. Then she had a little war in Falklands, and then she won with a landslide majority in 1983. Now, Boris might be planning the same thing. He's got one very tiny, teeny little problem. If it is shown that he broke the ministerial code by lying to the Houses of Parliament about having parties, and that hasn't been proved yet, then technically he has to resign. But maybe he thinks he can bury the whole thing by having an early election. So my view is it's 50-50.
Yeah, it's a dilemma for him, isn't it? Because if we have an election, let's say next year or early 2023, we will still be in the grip of a cost of living crisis. But then again, he's enjoying the Ukraine bounce. And let's hope that that conflict plays out positively with some kind of peace deal, at which point Boris might be ready to go straight to the country for exactly that reason, Lembit.
Ukraine bounce, that's a phrase probably invented by you, but it'll probably do the rounds now. The Ukraine bounce could win him another election. And I don't want to belittle the fact that he could have to resign on a technicality, because if it's shown that he lied to the House of Parliament, there's no way to go. There's nowhere to go at all. As you know, and regular viewers will know, I think that Keir Starmer has been an absolutely dreadful leader of the opposition. He had 4 weeks in a row to cause Boris to resign. He didn't have the capability to do it. And I don't think that Keir Starmer's got the capability to win a general election. That might make the Tories say to Boris in 2023, go for it, around May 2023. Let's win the election and then we'll deal with you later.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, do you think the country is ready for an election that soon, as early as next year?
No, I really don't. I think it would be wrong. It's been really difficult, hasn't it? Because Boris got in with a huge majority and then we had a pandemic and obviously Partygate is hanging over his head. But I don't think it would be wise. You imagine that if we hadn't had the pandemic, he was hoping his career would go on a steep rise. Surely before he starts marketing the next election, he's going to have to turn things around. And we're in such a difficult spot at the moment, which could last for a long time. So I can't imagine any rabbit coming out of any hat, really, which would ensure his sort of positive end to his reign, unless, of course, the Partygate thing solves the whole problem and he has to resign anyway. So personally, I think they'll put it back as far as they can. Something that actually helps Jay's argument is that there's actually a parliamentary bill which says that there has to be a fixed-term parliament. It doesn't actually mean anything, but theoretically, we can't have an election before 2024. I won't go into the technical details, but in that sense, Jay, you're right. And if it really causes massive problems for the Tories, they'll hold on as long as they can.
Yeah, what do you think, Leo? If you were Boris now, plotting your future, would you go to the country in 2023?
I think it would be unlikely. I mean, he's sitting on a huge majority, so it would be a risk to possibly squander that majority. As we saw in Canada, when Trudeau, who was sitting on top of a majority, went to the polls in the middle of the pandemic to try and bolster his support, and ended up just scraping in and, you know, doing quite a lot of damage to himself politically. Not as much damage as he later did by his treatment of the truckers and protesters. But yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they did. But I mean, you never really know what's going to happen. A year is an awfully long time in politics. The only thing is, I'd say, I mean, it's been mentioned already. But while there's a Ukraine bounce, the next year, possibly 2 years, are going to hit the British public quite hard with inflation and cost of living, particularly in terms of petrol and fuel and heating. So, yeah, I mean, people really vote. The Falklands didn't really affect us that much in terms of oil prices and cost of living. You know, this conflict really is affecting us. So people tend to vote with what hurts their pockets. So I'm not sure you'd want to. I think you'd want to put that crisis behind you before you even thought about.
But of course, Leo, we all know that you're a mole for Nicola Sturgeon, a secret Scottish nationalist. You want to destroy the union, so you want to keep it going as long as you can.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
I know it couldn't be. I'm just trying to get a rise from you.
Election against the SNP. But
now, Lembit, you of course were a member of Parliament. You've stalked the corridors of the Houses of Parliament. You've occupied the tea rooms. And you know what politics is like. Do you think that the Partygate scandal is now well behind the Prime Minister?
No, because it's like Al Capone. He went to prison for tax evasion in the end. Boris Johnson can't escape the fact that if he's shown to have lied to Parliament, he has to resign. There's no other way to do it. Otherwise, if he doesn't resign, then members of government can lie to the House of Commons. That can't be accepted. So that is a sword of Damocles hanging over his head. In some ways, he's been saved from this discomfort at the moment because of the Ukraine war. And I think that both Jay and Leo are right about that. I personally think that Boris will probably want to extend it as far as he can because he knows that. But you know what? There has to be some kind of resolution to the Partygate scandal, and that's got to be in the next 3 months.
Fascinating. Well, time will tell. What do you think, Mark at gbnews.uk? Very excited about my Mark Meets guest. I'm going to speak to the author of a brand new book all about Roman Abramovich. How topical. We're going to talk about how this man made his billions and what is his future following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Plus my alternative news headlines in just 2 minutes' time. So much to get through. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very excited because my Mark Meets guest is now in the studio. He is a Daily Mail journalist who has written a book all about Roman Abramovich. How did he make his billions, and what are the implications for Britain's most high-profile oligarch following Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Also, how much is he worth, and how did he make that cash? We'll discuss all of that very shortly. Plus my alternative news headlines. Another great British game show as well. Celebrity age gaps. Find out more shortly. But first, let's get the headlines with Olivia.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine because he fears having a democratic nation as his neighbour. Speaking at the Conservative Party Spring Conference, Boris Johnson said the Russian president is threatened by Ukraine's free press and elections.
He feared the Ukrainian example, and he feared the implicit reproach to himself. Because in Putin's Russia, you get jailed for 15 years just for calling an invasion an invasion. And if you stand against Putin in an election, you get poisoned or shot.
112 children have been killed since the start of the Russian invasion, according to the Ukrainian prosecutor's office. In the east, the governor of Luhansk says a humanitarian corridor is being opened for residents trying to evacuate the region. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for face-to-face talks with his Russian counterpart, telling Vladimir Putin it's time for comprehensive and meaningful negotiations.
I want everyone to hear me now, especially in Moscow. The time has come for a meeting. It is time to talk. The time has come to restore territorial integrity and justice for Ukraine. Otherwise, Russia's losses will be such that it will take several generations to recover.
In other news, P&O Ferries has resumed services between Liverpool and Dublin after sacking 800 staff on Thursday. Maritime Union Nautilus International is urging the government to revoke the ferry operators' licences in British waters. In a letter to the Transport Secretary, the union is also calling for any taxpayer money received during the pandemic to be returned. A murder investigation's been launched after a teenager was killed in central London. The 19-year-old woman was found with serious injuries at student accommodation in Clerkenwell. Police and medics attended, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. Firefighters suspect a huge blaze in the village of Parkgate in Cheshire may have been started deliberately. Crews responded to the incident just after 6:20 this evening and remain at the scene. Witnesses have posted footage online of the flames, which are spread across 500 square metres of marshland. Cheshire Fire and Rescue say fire breaks have been put in place to protect nearby properties. An investigation is now underway. On TV, online and on radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's time now for my alternative news headlines. And let's start with some wonderful wedding news. The 85-year-old former Italian Prime Minister, billionaire entrepreneur Silvio Berlusconi has found love and will marry his 32-year-old girlfriend. That's right, 32. There is a 53-year age gap. But of course, age is just a number. Well, here on Mark Dolan tonight, we've gained exclusive access to a leaked copy of the wedding list. It includes Last of the Summer Wine on VHS, a family pack of Werther's Originals, Always loves to suck on something at night, his and hers stair lifts, very comfortable, early bird vouchers for the Toby Carvery, oh, I love my turkey, and last but not least, front row tickets to the bingo. Happy days, two fat ladies. The American model Bella Hadid has revealed that she had a nose job at the age of 14. She said that she had the operation because she felt like the ugly sister compared to her older sibling, Gigi. Well, in another exclusive for the show, we've managed to track down before and after photos of the nose operation. No one knows how we got hold of these. So this is what she looks like right now after the op. Fabulous looking lady. And here is the before. Crumbs. Back to nature. David Cameron is in the news. The former Prime Minister is going to drive all the way to Poland to help out with the relief efforts in Ukraine. Nice to see Britain sending the Ukrainian people a useful tool. Let's take another look at some of those before and after photos of Bella Hadid. Here's what she looks like right now. Fabulous, excellent nose, lovely shape. And before the operation, space age. I think she forgot her mascara. Harry and Meghan are also in the news. They're being lined up to present the Best Picture Oscar next week. They'll fit in well, given their own fabulous acting in the Oprah interview, for which they should have won an Oscar themselves. Now let's go back to Bella Hadid one last time. Excellent features. What a bone structure. That was before the op. And after? Not for the faint-hearted. Look at that. That was a makeup-free Monday. I have those every day. And those are your alternative news headlines. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond, as well as those who simply have a big story to tell. Tonight, the most high-profile Russian oligarch in Britain, Roman Abramovich. How much do we know about this famously private man? How did he make his billions? How close is he to Putin and the Kremlin? And what does the future hold for the Chelsea owner following Russia's invasion of Ukraine? To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome Dominic Midgley, Daily Mail journalist and co-author alongside Chris Hutchins of the best-selling Abramovich, the billionaire from nowhere, which is out now. I'm delighted to say that Dominic Midgley joins me in the studio. Hi, Dominic. How are we?
Hi, Mark. Very well, thank you.
Were you nervous about writing this book, given the man's wealth and his access to the best lawyers?
Well, people did say look under your car before you get in it in the morning. But
definitely.
In fact, I think he's one of the more, well, less barracuda-like of the oligarchs, let's put it like that. So, yeah, we never experienced any problems.
How much is he worth? Do we know?
Well, he was at one point worth about 17 billion in 2008, but that's gone right down, especially since the invasion of Ukraine and the sanctions and all that kind of thing. So he's now down to his last 7 billion.
7 billion. So he's taken a bath in the last few weeks.
Yes.
But was there also a gradual diminution of his wealth before that?
Well, I think that he was always a sort of front man for a consortium. I mean, at one point he was described as Yeltsin's wallet, the president that preceded Putin. And so he was sort of like providing yachts and homes for politicians as well as himself, if you know what I mean.
Well, so let's go back to basics. First of all, what do we know about his early life?
Well, obviously he was orphaned as a young boy, but he was taken in by his uncle Abram and his wife, and they were very.
Do we know the context in which he was orphaned?
Well, his mother, I think, she had him, and then was pregnant with a second child. And rather than have another mouth to feed at a time when they were short of cash, she had a backstreet abortion and tragically died as a result. And then only about 4 years later, I think, his father was involved in a crane accident at work, and he died. So about the age of 6, he was orphaned.
Orphaned and living in Russia.
Yeah.
And what happened? Did he go into care?
No, his uncle Abram and his wife took him in, and they were a very loving family, and he was very well looked after until he left college.
So materially and emotionally, he was well looked after, although that will have been a trauma. Do we know if that trauma shaped him at all?
Well, there is an East European novelist who says that orphans are baptized into greatness because they're not so restricted by the same, parental guidelines that perhaps, constrain the rest of us.
Yes, and perhaps nothing can be more fearful than losing your parents, and therefore this chap turned out to be quite a fearless figure himself. Is he fearless?
Well, he's quite deceptive because he comes across as quite a sort of modest man, that modest smile you see whenever he's sort of in public and all that sort of thing. But he's obviously as hard as nails beneath that because you don't get to where he is today without being, very ruthless.
And did he show any prodigious talent as a student, for example?
No, I'm very undistinguished, academic record. But
so there's hope for all of us then.
Indeed. But he's very shrewd, and he was very entrepreneurial as a young man. Got involved in everything from selling plastic ducks to bodyguard recruitment to tyre manufacturer. But when he got into oil trading, that's when he really started hitting the big time, because he got to know Boris Berezovsky, who'd made a fortune in car dealing and then become a member of the government, and they managed to get a slice of the action in the sale of the century, as it's known, when Yeltsin sold off the mineral resources of the country for a pittance.
Yeah.
They managed to get Sibnev for $250 million when it was probably worth something like, well, it eventually was sold to the state 10 years later for $13 billion, which is 50 times as much. So it was obviously the deal of the century. Right.
So Abramovich was effectively part of this sort of resource land grab of Russia.
Exactly.
And did he personally just buy enormous, shares in these previously state-owned energy companies?
Well, he did that, but essentially he borrowed a lot of money from a bank and managed to, buy it. And in fact, the Panorama programme of last week did reveal that, he was having trouble raising the money. One of the problems we had when we wrote the book is exactly how do you get his, half of the $250 million. And they revealed that a government minister had actually paid $137 million into the bank that he then borrowed money from. And obviously there is some linkage there, we suspect.
And how did his business interests play out after that?
Well, he then went on to, buy another oil company called Slavneft in very controversial circumstances. He's now one of, a 30% shareholder in Evraz, which is a huge steel manufacturer. And that's caused him a lot of trouble, obviously, in recent days, because it's been, the possibility is that it sold steel to the Russian military, and it's Evraz steel, which is, the tanks are composed of that are attacking Ukraine.
Clearly ruthless and with a great eye for an opportunity, but was he also lucky? I mean, was he just in the right place at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, if you managed to get to know somebody like Boris Berezovsky in 1995, who had the ear of the president and could get them a piece of the action, obviously that was a great piece of luck on his part.
Yeah, and so what about his temperament? I mean, do we know much about the guy as a person?
Well, he's, as I say, he comes across as, quite a modest guy. He's obviously very...
He doesn't smile much, does he?
No, he doesn't smile
Even
much,
when Chelsea win the Champions League, he can barely crack a smile.
No, he's very calm, cool and collected, I would say.
Yeah.
But, and he's not one for cocaine-fueled nights with models or, heavy vodka drinking or anything like that. The most he'll have is a glass of red, apparently. But he has managed to get through 3 wives, of course. And
that was his most expensive vice.
I think so. It's probably cost him about $250 million or something like that.
And what about his relationship with Putin? Putin's been the head of Russia for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So did their relationship start well?
Well, one of the scoops of the book is that when Putin was made prime minister, Abramovich interviewed all the candidates for his first cabinet. Now, there's some doubt of whether it's because Putin wanted him to be a sounding board, or whether Yeltsin wanted to make sure that none of the ministers were about to prosecute him for corruption. I think it was probably the former. But he then went on to form quite a close relationship with Putin. He set up he was a sort of paymaster and organizational genius behind Unity, which is a political party set up to support Putin. And subsequently became a provincial governor in Chukotka in Russia's Far East.
Abramovich.
So
actually, he has had some political activity.
Been hand in glove with the Kremlin for 20 years.
Yeah, and therefore has had a good personal relationship with Putin. Like a collaboration almost, would you say? Partnership?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Putin was always in charge. But the thing about Abramovich, which people like Khodorkovsky and Berezovsky didn't really buy into, was that he never forgot that Putin owned the jails. So you didn't want to cross him like Khodorkovsky and Berezovsky did by, politically opposing him.
And how has Abramovich managed that relationship with the famously mercurial Putin over the years?
Well, he's obviously aware that he could be turned on at any moment, which is why somebody, when he bought Chelsea, I spoke to this very well-informed American businessman in Moscow, and I said, why did you buy Chelsea? He said, well, it's the cheapest insurance policy in history, because, if Putin ever turns on him, he's an instant celebrity in Britain. He's got a loving, adoring army of Chelsea supporters, and no prime minister would ever extradite him. So that's, I think, the thinking behind that.
So that was the idea. So he's not particularly interested in football per se.
No, I think he's a bit of a sports fan, but I think the reason he took it to such lengths is because of the insurance policy aspect. But of course, in the end, it's not the Kremlin that's turned on him; it's Downing Street, which is quite ironic, really.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the first sort of signs of cracks in the relationship between the UK and Abramovich would have been Theresa May's refusal to grant him. Was it a permanent visa or a passport to live in the UK?
Well, I think he needed to renew his visa.
Right.
And basically, in the wake of the Skripal affair, with the former spy being almost assassinated by, Novichok, I think the Home Office was taking their time to renew his visa, and I think he eventually withdrew his application because he saw the writing on the wall.
For sure. So what of Abramovich going forward? I mean, he's got a diminished fortune. Can he keep his fortune at all?
Well, I mean, he's got two types of fortune, if you know what I mean. He's got the mobile ones, which are the yachts, which are worth about 750 million between them. He's got the sort of two private jets, which are probably worth about 250 million pounds. And he can move those to friendly jurisdictions. But you can't move Chelsea. You can't move the 500 million pounds worth of property he's got in London. So he's in a bit of a fix. And, obviously he'd like to sell it as soon as possible. Whether he can get the cash out is a...
Well, that's right. I mean, I think the press are reporting today that all of his property will be seized in the UK. So not just Chelsea, but he'll have to sell everything he's got here.
Yeah. But can he take the proceeds out of the country? I don't know whether he can.
And he will, notwithstanding that, he's got enough cash elsewhere that he'll still be a rich man.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, as I say, he's got all these yachts and planes, and he's got...
I mean, can he live without Britain?
He could live without Britain, but in relatively reduced circumstances. I mean, not circumstances that you and I would not aspire to, but yeah.
And obviously, for oligarchs like Abramovich, this invasion of Ukraine is a nightmare, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his reputation has taken a total pasting.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that he seems to be involved in various, initiatives to try and broker an end to the war. I mean, he was said to have gone to, some negotiations on the border with Belarus. And last week, apparently, he met up with Gerhard Schroeder, the former German Chancellor, and they were talking about ways they could sort of help bring about peace. So I think the only way he can actually restore any shred of reputation is if he comes across as sort of peacemaker in Ukraine.
Do you think ultimately he will style this one out, even if he loses a few billion? Do you think he'll survive as such without being imprisoned or murdered?
I think he might be okay in Moscow, but I can't see him ever coming back to Britain, I must say.
No, or the West even, perhaps.
No, well, the EU have sanctioned him too, so he's in a very difficult position there.
Yeah, and do we know much about his current relationship with Putin?
Well, I mean, I presume if he's meeting people like Schroeder, because I think he met Schroeder just before Schroeder went off to meet Putin, so I assume that they must be coordinating their activities.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a fascinating story. And there'll be lots of Chelsea fans watching. He was a very successful owner. They won the Champions League trophies under Jose Mourinho. I mean, everything. FA Cup, the League Cup, Champions of Europe for the first time, Premier Leagues.
Well, I mean, I was watching the match against Middlesbrough earlier. They won 2-0. They beat Lille the other night. They beat Newcastle recently.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you think that was more than just his money? Because obviously the millions would have helped buying great players and paying for great managers. But is there something about his vision for the club which is part of its success?
Well, it's quite interesting because he had a CEO in place when he took it over. And he said, I want to turn it into a sort of global brand within 3 or 4 years. And said, executive said to him, it takes, you don't understand, Roman, it takes 20 years, 30 years. And so he was soon let go. And they brought in Peter Kenyon, who had the vision to say, well, he had the intelligence to say, yes, we can.
Because, always do that with an oligarch. Always say yes. And of course, Kenyon had achieved great things with Manchester United, helping them to become a global brand.
Yeah.
So the legacy of Chelsea for him, notwithstanding his rather hasty departure, will be a positive one.
Well, it all depends, because at the moment, of course, they can't sell merchandise, they can't sell match tickets, they can't buy players, they can't renew contracts. So, I mean, it just depends on, how long this sort of period goes on for, because it could be, very bad news.
So the quicker he disposes of the club, the better for Chelsea.
Exactly.
Yeah. And briefly, what about his personal life? His first wife, was she a stewardess?
That was the second wife.
Second wife.
Hard
to keep up.
It is. She was an Aeroflot stewardess, and they were.
So he spotted her. She was pouring him a glass of red wine, and
he was in.
He asked for another glass.
Exactly. And they were together for 16 years, had 5 children. She now lives in London, as far as I know. One of her places in Eaton Square, which is known as Red Square because it's full of Russians. Yeah. She's got a.
And she'll have picked up a pretty penny from him in the divorce courts.
I think it was 155 million.
So we'll take that, won't we? Right, yeah. And was that the substantial relationship of his life, the mother of his children?
Yes, but then he had a 10-year relationship with Dasha Zukova, his third wife, and they had 2 children. But that ended, of course, in 2017, and now he's said to be with a 25-year-old TV presenter.
How the other half live. Been wonderful to have you on the show. The book, is it going down well? Good reaction?
Yeah, very, very well. Yeah.
You've not had any Russian emails about it?
No, not at all.
No. Glad to hear it.
It's published in Russia, I'm glad to say.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. Well, look, it's been a privilege to have you on the show. Thanks for
pleasure.
coming from Marlow in Oxfordshire, nice part of the world. My sincere thanks once again to my brilliant guest. There you go. And Dominic Midgley's book is out now. It's all about Abramovich. Let's have a look at the name of the book once again. It is simply called Abramovich, the Billionaire from Nowhere. And it's out now. Thanks, Dominic. Lots more to come. In the news agenda, we'll be covering several major topics, including whether you would actually pick up arms to defend your country. Plus, we've got the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Another great British game show as well. Lots more to come. See you in 2.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking dry and clear for many, with a touch of frost here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Apart from in the southwest, where there'll be more cloud around than yesterday, and there may be the odd light shower too, though the winds will be lighter than Saturday. In the southeast, it will also be a calmer start, but there'll also be some morning sunshine, as well as some mist and fog. Moving across to South Wales, for most a dry and sunny but quite chilly start, though in the far west we can expect cloudier skies. Moving further north, it will still be dry here with plenty of spring sunshine too. However, it's going to feel much cooler out there, though it will be calmer than Saturday. In northeast England, it could be a bit of a murky start for inland areas, but dry, much brighter along the coast, though feeling cool here still with an onshore breeze. Now for southern Scotland, it's a similar story to elsewhere. Here is where the frost is most likely, but it will be a sunny and calmer start for most. Finally, Northern Ireland, where after a sunny Saturday, clear in the east, but in the west turning cloudier, with the odd spot of rain throughout the morning. The rest of Sunday morning will remain sunny for many, but it will continue to be a much cooler day than Saturday. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Let's catch up on a couple of emails. Dear Mark, I tried to claim off the council due to potholes, but the council make you jump through hoops with how to claim. Lots of red tape to put you off claiming. They will just tell you your car is too old and wouldn't warrant considering. Julie, they've always got a way of wriggling out of their responsibilities, don't they? On Russian oligarchs, Kenny says, Mark, what will happen to the estimated £100 billion of confiscated oligarch money? Could it be used to pay off the new NHS national insurance tax? Not a bad shout. And Norman Hill on the future of Boris Johnson and a possible snap election next year. Norm says, Dear Mark, your panellists are so wrong with their assessment of Johnson's future. First, he lied to the British people in his manifesto. Parliament are unimportant from that point on. Next, he has squandered his majority time and again, and he's done it with non-action on illegal immigrants. His duty is the safety of the British people, and we all feel more at risk now than before 2019. I am a lifelong Conservative voter, but until he goes, I am out. And finally, at this point in time, my Big Opinion monologue is now up and running. Carl has edited it and put it on our Twitter feed, at GB News if you missed it. And it was about British comedy under attack from political correctness. Leslie says, good evening, fantastic show as always and a great panel. I thought Mark's comment on the cultural atrocity being committed against British comedy by the BBC and others was perfectly considered. Mark really has said it all concerning the extremist ideological vandalism being conducted against one of our greatest national treasures and a resource that has united us as a nation through some of our best and worst times. Surely one of the most wicked and twisted acts imaginable is to contrive to destroy a nation's ability to laugh at ourselves and others and to puncture the absurdity of extremism through humour. Thanks again to Mark and all at GB News for your superb journalism and comment and for bringing freedom of speech and debate back to UK broadcast media. You are true GB heroes, and Mark's show is the highlight of my Saturday night. Well, Leslie, your emails are the highlight of every show, so thank you so much for getting in touch. Do keep them coming, mark@gbnews.uk. I could spend a whole show just doing your emails, and one day I may do just that. I could also spend a whole show with Kinsey Schofield, the queen of US news and royal reporting. She joins us live from Hollywood in California. Hi, Kinsey.
Hi, you know what we did when I lived in New Orleans? You know what we did with potholes? We would throw parties around them and we would fill them full of Mardi Gras beads so that we could at least drive over them for a few days. The Mardi Gras beads were stable enough just for a few days.
I wish I'd been at those parties. I can only imagine. Now, Kinsey, let's talk about Meghan and Harry. They are off to the Oscars, potentially.
That is what we're hearing, that they could be presenting at the most glamorous night in Hollywood, which is actually quite surprising, considering the fact that they have produced absolutely nothing yet for Netflix. But, you know, here's what I'm hearing online. The chatter online and the reaction online is, how do these guys continue to skip the line? They're handed the NAACP award. What exactly have you accomplished? They're already getting to walk the red carpets at the Oscars and getting to, you know, rub elbows with some of the biggest stars in the city. And people are confused by that because if we're being honest, Suits isn't exactly what I would consider an Oscar-winning performance for Miss Markle. But yeah, we're hearing that they could be presenting for Best Picture, which hopefully would go to Belfast. I thought that was such a charming, cute little movie. They were originally asked to present Best Actress, but Kristen Stewart is up for Best Actress in Spencer, which is obviously about Prince Harry's mother, Princess Diana, where she's kind of crazy in it and vomiting profusely and cutting herself and all this horrible stuff. So how cringe would it have been for Prince Harry to stand up there and suggest that she win, you know, the Oscar for Best Actress when it kind of portrayed her mother in a dark light?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that's a really fair point. Let's stay with Hollywood. And the actor Will Smith has had a dig at comedian and actress Rebel Wilson.
This is such a strange story to me because Rebel Wilson, who I know Dan Wootton was not a fan of her BAFTA performance, but I you know, my personal opinion, this was the first one I've kind of really sat back and watched, and I thought she was really cute. But she kind of poked fun at Will Smith when he won for King Richard by saying, you know, I thought his best performance was pretending he was okay with Jada's boyfriend, or, you know, Jada's boyfriends, because there's the show here called Red Table Talk on Facebook where Jada and Will kind of open up about their relationship. It is the most bizarre thing in the world because she admitted to having a relationship with this younger guy who was friends with her son, and Will Smith reacted on the show to it. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in the world. Anyway, Will Smith responds to the BAFTA joke the next day with Gayle King and says, I'm always aware of what's going on in my wife's life. I'm always aware of her relationships, and goes to say that they're comfortably in an open relationship, which BT dubs, we call that swingers here in America, and says that, you know, they are in an open relationship and they communicate with each other about who else they're dating. And I don't know if I would be sharing this information with the world. That's something I think I'd kind of keep in the closet.
Absolutely right. That's TMI, isn't it? I can assure you Mrs. Dolan and I are in a very closed relationship. More's the pity. Let's finish on this if we can, Kinsey. Time is tight, which is reassuring. Can we talk about Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, and the laptop scandal? Can you fill us in? Fill us in for those that don't know.
Absolutely. During the 2020 presidential election, a laptop was given to the New York Post by Rudy Giuliani. And this laptop belonged to Hunter Biden. He'd accidentally left it at a repair shop and never came to pick it back up. And the person that repaired it saw all sorts of salacious content on it, and he contacted the authorities. They did nothing. Eventually contacted, I believe, the Trump administration, and Rudy Giuliani got it in his possession, and Rudy Giuliani gave it to the New York Post. The New York Post proceeded to put it all out there, put it online, pictures of Hunter with crack pipes, half naked, like very salacious, inappropriate content on this laptop, and emails that revealed the fact that Hunter has all sorts of business relationships that he's solely has because of his father's position and his father's previous position as the vice president of the United States of America. Twitter shuts down this article. Twitter shuts down the New York Post's Twitter account. You cannot share it. If you share this article, you get suspended from Twitter. Facebook refuses to allow you to share this article. They say that third-party fact checkers are going to check it before you're allowed to share this article. The third-party fact checkers never shared it. CNN, all these major mainstream media outlets are telling us it's Russia trying to interfere with the election. The content's not real. Well, the New York Times had to bite the bullet this week and admit that the content in that laptop, all real. And now all of America is looking at each other, realizing that it was the mainstream media and big tech that tried to hide this story and tried to push this story down so that to ensure Joe Biden became the next president of the United States of America. So this is the type of story that you read about in a history book and you're fascinated and you're like, wow, I can't believe that happened. I can't tell you how much I loathe living this history lesson, right? It's the most bizarre and uncomfortable feeling to know that such powerful entities are trying to control what happens in the White House.
A true attack on democracy, and surely it discredits and delegitimizes Joe Biden's White House, if that hasn't already happened. Kinsey, I can't wait to catch up in a week's time. The fabulous Kinsey Schofield, the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting. If you want to get the latest royal news and exclusives, go to her brilliant website, To Die For Daily. Noel Gallagher, the rock superstar, has got the most interesting thing to say, and he's going to explain to people in an interview that he will lash out and fight if Russia threatens the UK. That's right, Noel Gallagher will fight for Britain. The singer says he would buy guns, camo gear and a telescope to stop them from getting to his Hampshire estate. The rocker revealed in a podcast that he would have to get involved if Russia invaded. Many millennials would be reluctant to even say that they'd fight, let alone be involved in a war. So what do my fantastic panel think? I'm delighted to say that with me is the amazing Jay Aston, Leo Kearse, and of course, Lembit Opik. Jay, can I start with you? Would you fight for Britain?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? If it's an actual war, I think we're all going to have to, and every man from the age of 18 to 60 will be conscripted. So, yeah, if it gets very nasty and NATO gets involved and it all gets terribly heated, then it could become disastrous because we all have about 3 minutes.
Yeah, so, that is the worry.
I don't really know what to say, but yes, I'd definitely fight for my country, of course, but I'd rather, we don't get into that position.
Are you a good shot?
I've only gone to a rifle range a couple of times. I haven't been very good. I don't think I ever won a duck on a fair or anything like that.
The thing is, you are a musician, so you've got that sort of that tempo, haven't you? That rhythm, that mental dexterity.
Hopefully, I'll never have to use it in that kind of way.
I certainly hope not. Leo, would you fight for your country?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was a gunsmith, so I grew up hunting and shooting. Since I was in short trousers, I've been firing guns, and I'd love to be alongside Noel Gallagher in the trenches. I think if he managed to tame the second most belligerent person in the world, Liam Gallagher, I think he can certainly have a chance at taming the most belligerent person, Putin. So yeah, I'd love to fight alongside Noel. We might need to be have a slightly different sized trenches because I think I'm a couple of feet taller than him. But,
Leo, Gallagher Noel Gallagher is proving to be a wonderfully un-PC commentator, isn't he?
Yeah, and isn't it? It makes you miss the 90s, the last great decade. I think when people just ran their mouths and had fun. Now everybody's got to watch what they're saying, and like Emma Watson, they've got to have the correct woke opinions, because if you say something that's slightly out of step with the mainstream woke opinion, then you instantly get cancelled. So yeah, it's great that people like Noel, who's already made all his money, he doesn't need any more money, so he can say what he wants. You can't fire Noel. He's unfireable.
And so is Leo Kurz. So is Lembit Opik. Lembit, have you ever fought for your country?
Yes. I fought for the independence of Estonia when the Soviet Union was collapsing. I used to go to Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and I got followed by the KGB. In my 20s, I didn't think that was a big deal. Now I realise that was probably quite a dangerous situation to be in. So I didn't raise a gun. I don't look back in anger, but I helped train the Estonian police to try and call out the secret services. It was a scary business. The other thing I did was I was Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. I grew up in Northern Ireland. I was born there. And I dealt with terrorists, people who'd actually killed people. And that was quite frightening in one way, but you just have to do what's right. I was taught, Mark, it was better to be dead than red because of the amount of damage that was done to my family from the Soviet Union. I think Jay's right, though. If it gets to this debate, we're all going to be incinerated anyway. So I'd just rather listen to Jay's music.
Are civilians, well, I would definitely go out listening to Bucks Fizz, the land of make-believe, making your mind up, so many fantastic hits. But Lembit, are civilians any good at fighting? Or could sort of, retired rock stars make things worse?
Well, Jay's not a retired rock star. How dare you?
No.
Gallagher... I know what you mean. Yeah.
Gallagher's semi-retired, isn't he? But I mean, do civilians do more harm than good in the field, in the theatre of war?
The definition of civilian, no. The way that civilians do good in a war is resistance. They welcome the occupying force and then they cause trouble. That's what you do. That's what resistance is all about. But honestly, Mark, if we're in that situation, then the game's up anyway. In a nuclear world, you have a nuclear war, and whoever's left over picks up the pieces. And I would suspect at that point, nations don't matter, survival does.
Yeah.
Brilliantly put. My panel return very shortly. We're going to play another great British game show. Very excited about this one. It's all about celebrity age gaps. And after this, we'll talk to my panel about whether age gap relationships are a problem. Are you in one? Mark at gbnews.uk. Let's have a quick look at a couple of emails. Mary says, "Dear Mark, love your show. You talked about hobnobs at the start of the programme. It's hot cross buns season. So we're drinking tea and eating hot cross buns and watching our favourite comedian, Vladimir Kalensky. Sorry, Mark, but you are our number 2 comedian. Vlad is small but mighty. Seriously, we love you. Funny, refreshing, different, smart, very tall, sexy. Wow! Trish and Roger, I'm honoured and clearly in great company. Yeah, Marks and Spencer are doing a hot cross bun loaf at the moment, which I'm very excited about. Well, I might dedicate tomorrow's show to hot cross buns based upon what you've said. Thanks very much for that, Trish. How about this from Rory on Roads? Mark, great show. Bottom line is that according to Sir David Attenborough, the UK is one of the most nature-depleted countries on Earth due to overpopulation. More roads, houses and infrastructure generally mean that well over 50% of the UK's natural environment has been destroyed by urban intrusion. We need to reduce explosive population growth, which is mainly driven by immigration. Rory, thanks for your email. So many more emails to come, and of course a great British game show. And do age gap relationships work? We'll discuss that after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'll get to more of your emails very shortly, but let's react to more big stories of the day with former Lib Dem MP, broadcaster, commentator and filmmaker Lembit Opik, former member of Bucks Fizz, presenter and performer Jay Aston, former Scottish Comedian of the Year and GB News presenter Leo Kearse. There he is. So let's have a look at what stories are breaking. And this one's a fascinating one. I mentioned it in my alternative news headlines earlier. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi is set to marry for a third time. The 85-year-old's bride-to-be is 53 years younger than him, 53. Although the pair won't be legally marrying due to an inheritance row with his family. They're still going to devote themselves to one another at what they're calling a festival of love. Can imagine how spicy that one is. Lembit, age gap relationships, do they work?
Yes. Yes.
Now listen, can I out you? Can we go down the kind of slightly tabloid route with you? You are a respected and revered public figure who served your constituents with distinction, man of principle. You did date a cheeky girl at one point.
Yes, I did.
In fact, I think you told me on this programme she was the love of your life.
Yeah. But well, not the only one, but...
And by the way, the age gap wasn't too bad, was it? It was a few years.
Well, yeah, it was double figures.
Okay.
But there's somebody else called Merriday I went out with, and she was on Alan Titchmarsh's show. She was 20, and I think I was about 45. And Alan said to her, is Lembit's age a problem? And she said, very wisely, I don't think he's too young for me. That's the point.
That's what you
It's
want.
in your mind, you know, and I like to think that if we want to judge on age, then we're just judging ourselves.
Is it easier for blokes to be the older one?
Yes, much easier,
Why?
I have to say. Just because of the habits of our society. That's really what it is. I'm not saying that's good, but I'm sure if I'd been 20 and she'd been 45, I would say, oh, it's not right. But the other way around, it's like Berlusconiism. There's a new phrase for you.
That will do it.
People respect
up there with
but not in a good
Thatcherism.
way.
Yeah, Marxism, Berlusconiism.
You heard it first on GB News.
What does that involve? Everyone having an orange face. Jay, have you encountered age gap relationships in the world of showbiz?
Yes. Well, I'm married to a man who's 8 years younger than me. So that works.
A mere bagatelle.
Yes. But I don't notice any kind of
Was it
age gap
actually
at
a
all.
selling point that he was younger, that there was somebody with the energy to keep up with you?
He's a great musician.
This is turning into a counselling session for Mark.
We met writing songs, and so yeah, I didn't. We were working together for a long time before anything developed. So, yeah, I don't notice any kind of misgap or anything at all in our relationship.
No,
I did go out with an older guy once. That was he was 13 years older than me, and I did find that difficult.
What was difficult about it?
Just a different generation, different mindset.
13 years.
Yeah. I'm
like
afraid
different attitudes. Was he a bit more old-fashioned, fuddy-duddy?
I'm still very good friends with him, but there was just an age gap that I I just couldn't quite deal with.
What is enough of an age gap to have a toy boy? Because if there's a 7-year gap between you and your other half, is he a toy boy?
No, definitely not.
Sean Lloyd.
I think you need at least a decade, don't you?
Sean Lloyd was 7 years older than me, and it wasn't about the age. I'm on your side on this, Jay. Absolutely, 100% on your side.
Yeah.
So leave her alone.
I wonder whether actually an older partner is actually quite a selling point, because they're more chilled out, aren't they? Older people, they're not so self-conscious. They don't worry about what other people think, Leah.
Yeah, they know what they want. They've lived a bit and they know what they want. Because everybody wants to marry their first girlfriend. But your first girlfriend usually isn't the person you should marry. You should, try on a few shoes before you leave the shop.
Yeah.
One person's going to be very angry with you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ageism at play here, isn't there? Even for Mr. Berlusconi. I mean, it just so happens that she's fallen in love with this multi-billionaire.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Because he's got a great personality.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean,
he glows, doesn't he? He glows in the dark.
And women are impressed by vigour and health and all those things. And Silvio Berlusconi, look at his full head of hair, his natural full head of hair.
Spectacular.
It's amazing. His teeth just as perfect as when he was 14 years old.
What about this young woman? Can you imagine that she'll have a tough time dating a man 53 years older than her, Jane?
Oh, I would. Well, it depends, doesn't it, on the dynamic of the relationship, the personalities, and ultimately what she's looking for.
Yeah.
Joint bank account, maybe?
I wish them the very best.
Yeah. How much of this is about money, do you think? How often is it about money? With the sugar daddy syndrome.
Why are you looking at
the
her?
old man and the young girl.
Well, I'm sure they're, yeah. Definitely, there can be money involved, but I mean, at the end of the day, surely you've got to actually love the person to be able to make it work.
Yeah. It's actually not nice. Society is very judgmental about this, isn't it? It's like the people in love never have a problem with an age gap. It's just how the media reports it and how relatives pick up on it.
Charlie Chaplin, if you look at his background, rather savoury details there.
Oh, yes.
No one talks about him. When it comes down to it, the big picture view for me is you can get love with any age. It's about attitude, and I agree with Jay and actually with Leo as well.
Yeah.
Why are we going to judge on age, and why do we assume that it's always better for a man to be older than the woman?
Well, that's right. We've also seen, haven't we, Joan Collins, very happily married to Percy Gibson, I think his name is. They've been together for decades. This is a woman that's married a lot of people, but she finally found love at about the age of 60. And why not?
So she says.
So she says. That's her story. Oh, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, clearly there are going to be challenges. I mean, one issue raised by Jay there is values being different, the generations. Surely that's a factor, though. Long term, if your points of reference are different. I mean, I'm very obviously blissfully happy with Mrs. Dolan, but if I dated a young woman, I'd have to explain to her what Carry On films are.
And 3 questions you have to ask is, who's Neil Armstrong? Miners' Strike, Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, gosh.
They can't answer those 3. Next, please.
I'd be asking her, who is Lembit Opik? And if she didn't know, she's out. Can I have a camera, please? Brilliant stuff. OK, look, let's crack on, because it's time now for our Great British Game Show. And today is called Age is Just a Number. In relation to that very conversation, as we've been discussing, Silvio Berlusconi, Mr. Bunga Bunga, is going to marry Martina Fascina, a woman 53 years his junior, although it does look like there are some terms and conditions attached to that wedding. But of course, they're not the only celebrity couple with a significant age gap. So let's see if my panel and you at home can guess the age gap of these power couples. Let's play Age is Just a Number. And let's start with Leonardo DiCaprio and Camilla Morrone. She's not a moron, I promise you. What is the age gap, do you think?
Leo always wins this.
Now, you know that it's 53 years between Berlusconi and his squeeze.
20.
So you've got 20 years. How about you, Leo?
18.
18?
I'll go for 17.
The points go to Lembit. 23 years.
For the first time.
You've done it. Leo is a sprightly 47 and Camilla is 24. I'm sure they'll be very happy. OK, how about this one? Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Their age gap.
43.
43 years? Blimey, I don't think Michael's that old. Jay?
I'd say 40.
40 years?
I'd go for 35.
He needs a new plastic surgeon. It's just 25 years. Yes, indeed. He is 77 and Catherine Zeta-Jones is 52. And that's been, I've got to say, a relationship that defied the odds. So well done to those two. OK, next up, we've got Alec Baldwin, who's been in the news for all the wrong reasons recently, and his wife, Hilaria Baldwin. Alec Baldwin and Hilaria. She's a very beautiful lady, I think we can agree. What's the age gap?
30.
30 years. Jay?
23.
23?
20.
No, the points go...
He's
He's hedging his bets. The points go to Jay because it's 26 years. Alec is 63, although he looks about 100 at the moment for obvious reasons. And Hilaria is 38, and they've got about 1 million kids as well.
That's hilarious.
It is nicely done. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Lepetobit, for that ready wit. How about this? Mick Jagger and Melanie Hamrick.
105.
It's a bit harsh. Although that's not the best shot of old Mick, I've got to say. They didn't get him on a good day.
OK,
You're going to go
150.
50 years, Jay?
47.
47 years?
45.
Well, the points go to Leo, 43 years.
There we go.
Fair whack, 43 years. He's 78 and she's 35, but I've got to say he looks about 60. He's a remarkable guy. Patrick Stewart and Sonny Ozell. Now, Patrick Stewart, famously from Star Trek, what's their age gap?
15.
15 years only?
That's what I say.
How old do you think Patrick Stewart is? What's your guess?
He's got to be in his 70s now.
Yeah, you reckon his 70s?
80 light years.
And how old does Sonny look? Let's get that shot up again if we can.
That's you.
That's, well, yeah. I wish I looked Sonny. Yeah, what do we think? What's the age gap between those two?
15 years.
15?
Jay.
I'll go for 18.
18?
I'll go for 20.
Well, you're badly out of the loop on this one because it's 38 years.
Oh, wow.
She's 43, which of course is young. He's 81.
Whoa.
I mean, talk about wearing it well.
Make it so, number one.
There's hope for Lembitopek. Look at
that.
You silver fox.
I'll sue you for that.
And of course, Jay, ever ageless. And Leo, comedy keeps you young. Now, Lionel Richie and Lisa Parigi.
Someone else go first.
He also looks really good. Yeah.
Go on, Leo.
Let's have that, Leo.
Go on, Leo.
What do you reckon?
I would say 25 years.
25 years between those two. OK. Jay?
I'd go at 20.
20?
I'll go 25 and a half.
Well, Lionel is very well preserved, apart from being a fellow music genius like yourself, Jay. He's very, very, very handsome and young, but he's old. 38 years is the age gap. 38 years. Wow. She's 34 and he's 72. Well done to my amazing team. The other side of the glass, by the way, Nim and my fantastic dream team working so hard putting together a wonderful show today. Also, thanks to my fantastic panellists. I think you'll agree we've been travelling business class with Jay, Leo and the fantastic Lembit. And they'll be returning very, very soon. I'm sticking around because we've got headliners next. Two top comedians reacting to the big stories of the day. Andrew Doyle and Nick Dixon. And I'm back tomorrow for another Mark Dolan tonight. We are in at 9 o'clock. Very excited. We've got Mark Meets, The Big Question and much, much more. Thanks for your company and the emails. See you tomorrow at 9.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking dry and clear for many with a touch of frost here and there. Let's take a look at the details. Apart from in the southwest, where there'll be more cloud around than yesterday, and there may be the odd light shower too, though the winds will be lighter than Saturday. In the southeast, it will also be a calmer start, but there'll also be some morning sunshine, as well as some mist and fog. Moving across to South Wales, for most a dry and sunny but quite chilly start, though in the far west we can expect cloudier skies. Moving further north, it will still be dry here with plenty of spring sunshine too. However, it's going to feel much cooler out there, though it will be calmer than Saturday. In northeast England, it could be a bit of a murky start for inland areas, but dry, much brighter along the coast, though feeling cool here still with an onshore breeze. Now for southern Scotland, it's a similar story to elsewhere. Here is where the frost is most likely, but it will be a sunny and calmer start for most. Finally, Northern Ireland, where after a sunny Saturday, clear in the east, but in the west turning cloudier, with the odd spot of rain throughout the morning. The rest of Sunday morning will remain sunny for many, but it will continue to be a much cooler day than Saturday. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes.